Hello everybody and welcome back to my shop. As you can see, I'm back in the small shop again today, and my plan is to work on old Blue. Yesterday I spent the biggest part of the day trying to do some cleaning and some organizing in here. I've piled stuff up in here for so long that drove me crazy. So I had to take time out, and I've got everything kind of laid out, and today I think I'm going to start mocking up a bunch of the parts that I've got for the car that I discussed in the last video. But before I jump in, I want to, as usual, I want to thank everybody for following along, and I appreciate you clicking on this video, and hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll see if we can get after it and get a few parts hung on this thing today. Thanks for watching. Okay, we're going to do a couple things while I have this instrument cluster sitting here on the dash. It ain't on the dash no more. Okay, before I jump over into the engine compartment and just get too carried away, I wanted to show you guys what I did. For the most part, I was able to get everything cleaned up underneath the engine, underneath the hood, the frame, cleaned the fender wells, the firewall. And for the most part, it was just mainly dust, as I had said. But the engine that I pulled out of here, it did have a pretty substantial oil leak in it, and it's through some pretty good oil slick underneath the car. So that stuff I'll end up cleaning as I go further back towards the car. But anyway, I'm gonna jump over in the middle of this thing, and then we'll get to hanging some parts on. All right, I'll see if I can get over here without breaking something. All right, I'm in. I'm going to reposition the camera, that way you guys can see. I'm going to try to do things just a little bit different. And instead of doing so much time lapse, I'm going to actually try to leave the camera rolling while I put some of these parts on. So we'll see how, hopefully it doesn't get too boring. So I'll reposition the camera, so I'll be right back. Okay, I've hung the brackets on the firewall, and I've just snugged these down, finger tight. Now that I've done that, I'm going to hang the booster, and I'm trying to use rags. I don't have any gloves here, some latex gloves, but usually your fingerprints, all the oil and stuff off your fingerprints will just do a number on these things. So anyway, this is, I think it's called a Tough Stuff brand. I bought it from Summit Racing. I've used these on other cars, and they seem to work pretty good. I think they're dual diaphragm, so they definitely help save you some space. All right, now that that's bolted up tight, wipe my fingerprints off of it just so I don't have to worry about it fitting. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the master cylinder and the proportioning valve bracket on. Now, this is a Willwood, of course. There's a little plunger that goes in the back of this, and before I set this thing up, I actually checked the clearance between this plunger and this, I guess it's a pintle in here, and I ended up having to work this thing down just a little bit, short it up, because it was holding this off the master cylinder off the booster about 1/8 of an inch. So I just took a drill and just chucked it up in the drill and just spun it around and used my belt sander. But anyway, that's got to go in there. And I have actually left that out before, and that's not a fun day to try to bleed out a set of brakes, and you're pumping and pumping and pumping, trying to figure out what's going on. And next, I've got the line kit, and came with some nice, pretty black washers. And we'll mount this bracket on here, and I think hopefully these nuts will fit, and they won't. So these are a different thread, so I'm gonna have to grab some nuts. But anyway, Okay, some days you just, or I do, I manage to hide stuff from myself so well, and today was no exception. So anyway, found those, and I'm gonna put this thing together before I hang this. I probably could have assembled this whole thing on the bench before I put it on, but I decided against it. So kind of the next step is to figure out the brake lines. Of course, I'll have to get the material to bend them. So I may move on to the master cylinder, or excuse me, to the, once I get this thing all chucked up here, I may end up moving over and start doing the windshield wiper motor. As soon as I get the brake lines all mocked up into place, I'll bench bleed this. So basically I'll hook some fittings into here, and I'll just pump the fluid back into this and bench bleed this master cylinder before I put the brakes lines on, and then we'll bleed out the system. So the next thing I think I'm gonna do is, I bought a Detroit Speed windshield wiper kit for this car. And the kit that I bought actually fits a second gen Camaro, and I don't know if I'm naive, but I'm pretty sure they're the same exact component, because there's not a lot of stuff that you can buy for these 4th gen cars. So I'm gonna jump out of this engine compartment, and I'm gonna grab that piece, and we're gonna start getting it put together, and we'll continue. Okay, back in the car, and for the most part, mechanically, it's about the same. The bolt pattern is there, and that's about what it's going to look like. Now, I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to paint this or build some type of a cover for this. Their older styles looked a lot neater, looked a lot cleaner, but this is pretty straightforward. We're just going to put the windshield wiper arm, transmission arm back on it, and I grabbed the wrong socket, but since I may end up taking it back off, then that's fine. For now, we'll just leave it as it is. The windshield wipers are going to want to come up a little bit. I'm going to have to reclop those for the home position, but then pretty straightforward. It's got these little Allen screws. It's gonna hold it in. I just want to kind of get it mocked up to make sure everything's gonna work. Now, like I said, mechanically, the install is really simple. Electrically, it's a little bit more involved, because there is a little bit of wiring that's got to be modified, and it comes with a little bit more of a harness. So I'll address this whenever I move into the car. The other part is the existing wiper switch on these cars were a slider, and this has a modification that has a bracket and stuff. So whenever I do the Dakota Digital part of the dash, I'll actually make the modifications to the dash and the windshield wiper switch. So we'll save that for later, but I'm pretty pleased. I think that's going to bolt right into place. Like I said, I just want to try to figure out, with everything, the way the car looks, whether or not to try to cover this up and paint this part, or just let it be what it is. So anyway, I'm gonna see what we can do next. I may move the camera a little bit, because there's a bolt. Actually, there's a fitting right here that I used to run wires through, that I'll probably end up taking that out, and this will be my pass through for the wiring on this now. So that'll end up plugging into here, and then this will end up going through the firewall. So it's it's a lot flatter. The old ones come out, they're more of a rectangle look, and they stick out real far. So gives you a little more clearance under here, especially if you're running a big block, which this car is not. So all right, we'll move right along and see what else we can put on the car today. Okay, it's story time. I want to show you guys something else that I did on this car. I was talking earlier about this fitting that you couldn't see. This is what it was. All it is a stainless steel fitting, ferrule fitting, compression fitting, whatever you want to call it. And I had this thing in this hole right here, and it worked as like a bulkhead pass through. And what that did, and I saw this on a car years ago, probably one of the very first car shows I ever went to. There was this real slick car, and they had several of these on the firewall, and they had tubing hooked to them. And basically what it was their pass through, and they were running wiring to the engine that way. So on this, I somewhat did kind of the same thing. As you can see this piece here, this fit on that bulkhead plug-in, and it mounted in here just like this. And I don't know if you can see it very good, but we'll try to pan that down a little bit. But it mounted in here just like that. Now, of course, your valve cover of your engine sets right here. And what that did was I had two wires ran through here. One came out right here, and the other one came out right here. And these hid, this was my temperature sending unit wire, and of course my oil pressure sending unit was back here on the back of the block. And that was the way I kind of put these in here as a pass-through. Also, if you can look, I'll move over just a little more, but I still have some of that now where this tubing right here is holding the blower motor wiring for the heater. And then this one actually comes out on this side way back here in the corner. This was my solenoid feed wire that's actually ran off the key switch. I'll end up redoing this one just a little bit, but anyway, I just wanted to share that because that was some of the stuff that some of the things that I found was kind of unique whenever I put this car together. So anyway, just wanted to share that. Thought it was kind of cool. Okay. Another thing that I said I was going to get rid of, or actually change colors, was my MSD box. I bought this thing several years ago, and I bought it and the Blaster 2 coil. I bought these in red. Not real sure why, but they make them in black now, so I'm going to change these out now. The coil was mounted here, and I have a new coil, which is still the Blaster 2, and I've got a different bracket. And I still plan on trying to mount them in that same general spot because I had clearance for the tunnel ram and everything else. So that'll go there. And then the ignition box is black. So trying to get rid of some things and kind of give it a little bit more color coordination. So this is going to be pretty straightforward because all it is just plug and play. I'm going to end up here. Back whenever I built this thing, I didn't have the threaded insert, so I'll end up putting a threaded insert there and using that to bolt the coil to. So it looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to hang the box once I get these screws out of here. These are on some isolation mounts, which is a good idea if you have something that's got a lot of vibration in it. And this car does have a rather healthy camshaft in it, so in order to keep it from vibrating, we're just going to isolate it here. Now, it is fully my plan to run this MSD ignition. However, with this new Sniper fuel injection system, I could change my mind, and actually, I know the dual sync distributors and the Holley CDI boxes are really, they're kind of matched to where they're a plug and play unit. So currently my plan is to just run this MSD standalone on it, and we'll go from there and see what happens. So okay, another one of the parts that I'm going to replace on this car is the actual steering box. This is a CPP steering box. It's a 500 series. This is a 14-to-1 ratio, so this is gonna quicken the steering up on this car considerably. I'm not gonna be road coursing this car by no means, but I wanted to tighten it up a little bit because the original steering boxes on these things, when you're out on the road, sometimes they float. And the box that I had on there originally, it was a new one, so Anyway, I think before I hang this, I want to give it a little bit shinier paint. So I'm going to get this thing cleaned up, get the oil and the grime off of it, and get a better coat of paint on it. Also, it does come with a really cool looking cap that sits on here, and this thing will bolt on with Allen bolts, so gives it a nice dressed up look underneath the hood. So that's what I'm gonna get this thing cleaned up and get it painted, and we'll get it hung. Okay, while we're sitting here waiting for the paint to dry, I figured I'd take this old fuel system apart, and I pulled all the AN fittings off of the steel braided hose that I used, and these things are definitely reusable, and I could use them on other projects, so I thought I'd pull this off. Another thing that I did is, this was the pre-filter that was on my Holley blue pump, and then this actually went to the fuel tank. And although that stuff was all brand new, I opened this filter up, and I'm telling you, I found a ton of dirt in this thing. There was metal shavings, there was all kinds of stuff that this thing, it caught this thing before it all went up to the carburetors. And I guess I wasn't as clean as I thought I was whenever I did the sump on that tank. So anyway, it's a good thing that I ran that. So another thing I kind of talked about the other day was all these clamps. And you can see, I made all of these things. I made me I hand bent all this stuff. And it's funny because I can buy clamps now that are actually really nice. And whenever I go back, that's what I'll end up doing. So another thing, although the AN fittings are all reusable, this hose, this is steel braided line, and this is really good stuff. And it's still nice and pliable. It could be reused on another project. And that's exactly what I'll end up doing. I'll use this on something else down the road. The new fuel line is this, which it's the same size, but this has got more of this is a cloth finish, and it's not as harsh as far as, like, if you run this steel braided stuff across the frame or a painted surface, it'll literally cut it off. This stuff here is a lot more forgiving. Now, it's also steel braided underneath that nylon, and it'll stick your fingers, but I'll tell you, I use this stuff on fuel lines. I use this stuff on automatic transmission lines with these AN fittings, and so far I've had really good luck with this stuff. This is a 20-foot roll, and I bet you I may end up having to buy at least another roll. I may need at least another half of a roll to finish out the fuel system once we get started. So anyway, I think I'm going to get set up, and I think it's probably going to be a little bit before that steering box dries. That paint is really, really slow to dry, but it is good paint. I think behind me here, I've got the digital dash. I've got the instrument cluster out of the car. I think I'm going to set up, and I'm going to start pulling the parts off of that and kind of walk you guys through that. Once I get the dash actually mounted, then there's going to be a handful of wiring that I'm going to redo to make accommodations for the fuel system and some other changes, but we'll jump on the dash next. Okay, we're going to do a couple of things while I have this instrument cluster sitting here on the bench. One, we're going to install the Dakota digital dash that's in here, and two, the windshield wiper switch modification that I was talking about with windshield wipers, the Detroit Speed windshield wiper. We're going to make that while we're at it. So just kind of a little of a rundown on this. If you guys can see, I ended up, whenever I put this thing together, I cut out all these little aluminum pieces and used those as inserts to kind of, the car's been, I guess, kind of an aluminum trim was kind of my theme. Of course, it was stuff that I had, and I thought it looked pretty good back in the day, and I'm gonna leave it. So basically we need to flip this old jewel over. And before I take this apart, because this is pretty simple, I mean, we're just gonna take the bolts off and pull this thing out. As you can see, there's a printed circuit board on the back of this, and where that plugs in is the bulkhead plug-in for this is gonna be what we're gonna end up tying into the BIM module that is coming with this dash assembly. So anyway, let me pull this one off real quick and I'll show you guys just how simple it is. You have to be very careful with some of these old dashes though, because what happens is these mounting posts, these plastic mounting posts will break. And in fact, there are two that have snapped already on this. And so I want to be extra cautious when I do this, but that's pretty much it. Also back in the day when I first built this, I found this white gauge backing plates, these stickers, these decals, and I bought those and stuck them in there. And you know, back then I thought that was pretty cool too. So, which it was for, I don't know, 90s or early 2000s maybe. So anyway, let me unbox this real quick and I'll show you what it comes with. Set this thing out of the way. Okay, got this thing unboxed, and the most important piece is this. And this is the new instrument cluster. You can see it's got fuel gauge, temperature gauge, miles per hour, RPM, oil, and voltage. And this is pretty simple. It's basically, we're just gonna put it right back in the spot where the old one came out. And then we're gonna refasten the screws. Now, I think before I fasten these screws in here, I wanna look and see, I might actually try to repair these posts that have been broken. And, but that's not gonna stop me from doing anything else that I need to do. So the neat thing, what I was talking about, the bulkhead plug-in for the printed circuit board, that's where this BIM module comes into play. So everything has terminal strips, and for the most part, all the stuff that plugs into that dash, we'll use that plug-in. I'll cut it and we'll re-terminate it into here. I'll have to mount this, and that will be part of the stuff that I do when I set up to do the wiring on the inside. As far as the sending units and stuff, everything is pretty well comes with its own sending units, and every sending unit has its own cable that feeds into this BIM. The only connection from that BIM module to the actual instrument cluster is this RJ45 cable. Basically, it looks like an Ethernet cable. And so that's pretty much what we're gonna do. The next thing I have to modify is this. See if we can get this zoomed in just a little bit, or at least get it to where you guys can see the switch. But this right here is I'm gonna set this out of the way until I'm ready for it. But this is the windshield wiper switch originally, and as you can see, it's basically slides horizontally. And the new one is this, which is a radial. It turns, I think this is also a delay too. So there is a modification kit that they send that hopefully I don't have to chase anything. And I've got all of the hardware and stuff that I need to make this conversion right here in front of me. But all we're gonna do is we're gonna take this old one out. And I don't really know for sure. There's an instrument cluster light here that I'm not too sure if this is gonna be needed. Actually, it will be. I'll put this back in because there's a slot that it's designed to shine light through this slot, so you actually see the switch. I could probably leave that out, but I believe it's there. We'll go ahead and mount it back in. So anyway, the kit comes with a new bracket that will go on here. Get this back on. Wow, that thing Okay, this is where so this is where it gets a little bit different. And it reminds me too, because I ordered this for a Camaro. This bracket, you see these feet, they're angled because the Camaro instrument cluster is flat and then it pans out on the sides. So I'll have to modify this bracket to make that switch fit in there, which that's a very simple repair or minor modification. So we'll make this and then we'll continue with the install. Okay, I've studied this just a little bit closer. And this is the switch that is in this Nova dash, right? So it's pretty well, you can see it mounts flat, whereas this one was set up as it was angled. It's pretty straightforward. It's just got a hole in it. So I think what I'm gonna do, since I don't need this switch, this metal, the face of this is metal. So I'm just gonna bust the switch apart, and then I'm gonna put me a new piece of metal on the front of this and pop me a hole in it that size to where this switch, because all it does is it just mounts this knob, and then you have a new fancy knob here. So, and this is set with an Allen screw. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. That'll be the most simplest way to modify this. I don't need to necessarily remake this bracket, but I did forget that I ordered this for a Camaro, and the dashes are different the way they mount into the dash. So minor setback. So we'll start modifying this and then we'll mount it. Okay, I was able to modify that without a whole lot of trouble. Got just a touch more adjusting to do to it. I got a drill and pin it so the switch doesn't actually turn. And maybe put some paint on it. I kind of like the shininess of that, but more than likely I'll go ahead and paint that black. But if you couldn't tell too, I'm a little bit limited on my tools here, so I had to crack out the old hacksaw, which I haven't done that in a while. So anyhow, I think for tonight I'm gonna probably call it an evening. I've got a handful of parts that I got to chase down, and we'll continue to put stuff on the car. And it also at my large shop, I had the engine for this. I need to do a few more things to that, and then it's ready to come in, and I can actually put the engine down in it. Once I get the engine in, then of course I can get the intake manifold back on it, and I can start the fuel system. So anyway, I think that'll call it for the night, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good morning, everybody. I'm back at it, and just want to let you know the footage that you just watched was about 6 months old. I actually forgot that I had that filmed, and I never did finish editing that video. I actually had to do a little bit more to this dash, so I'm going to try to pick up where we left off, which for the most part we had talked about. I got the Dakota Digital instrument cluster mounted into the dash. I went ahead, I did fix a couple of these other posts that were broke, and I ended up modifying the bracket from the old windshield wiper switch that will house the new rotary switch. So I'm gonna bolt those in, no big deal. Next thing, I got my steering box here, and of course it's had about 6 months time to dry the paint, so it should be good to be put on here in just a little bit. So another thing with this gap in time, it has also forced me to buy a bunch more parts, and we'll go over a lot of the other stuff. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get this bolted on, get the switch bolted into here, and I may go ahead and bolt the steering box on, and then I've got a couple of other things, and then I'll show you guys some of the other goodies that I've purchased. So anyway, I'll see you in just a bit. A little bit earlier I had talked about having too much time on my hands, and I ended up in the past several months buying a lot more parts. So a couple of the parts that I kind of talked about earlier in the video, which one was the stainless steel brake line kit, which is in these two boxes behind me. Now, I ordered these to fit a second gen Camaro, and I'm pretty sure by the way the front subframes are shaped, these shouldn't give me any trouble. And as I get towards the back, I believe I could re-flare and shorten lines if I need to, if these cars are different in the length. The next thing I ended up doing is I was looking at my rotors that I put on, and everything on this car was put on brand new not too long ago. I went ahead and bought a set of drilled and slotted rotors. Additionally, I bought a set of wheelwood brake pads and calipers, and of course I went ahead and got the wheelwood brake lines. So the last thing that I needed, and it didn't really matter as far as time, was I needed the stuff to build out the new fuel system, because we did talk about either this video or the previous video on this old car that I am going fuel injection on this car. So I had to have the GPA 6 pump. I got some nice brackets for my filters, a splitter, and hopefully I have all the A-end fittings that I need to build this system out. So the next thing, I've kind of thrown a little bit of twist into this plot, and I'm going to grab the camera and I'm going to flip the camera around and kind of let you guys in on a little bit. I've been kicking this around, so let me grab the camera and I'll show you what else I'm talking about. So if you guys will remember in previous videos, I talked about the engine that was in this. And basically it was a 383 small block Chevy that had a tunnel ram, 2 4-barrel carbs, and of course it had a lot of aluminum and chrome and what have you on it. So it looks really good, and if you're not too sure, I've got a picture of it up here so you can see what it does look like. But I actually have another engine that I've been building in this shop, and I haven't touched this thing in quite a while. But what this is, and I'm not going to pull that engine bag off, but this is another 383. So you're thinking, well, why replace that 383 with another 383? Well, this one, as you can see, has kind of a unique looking piston, and those pistons and everything in this engine are forged. In fact, this is probably the most expensive small block Chevy that I have ever put together of my own. And the twist to that is laying over here. I've been kicking this around, and I'll tell you why. But underneath this cover is a 671 Dyer's blower. And that is exactly what I built that 383 we just looked at for, was for this blower. And of course, I've got the rest of the components down there, the heads and other parts to go on this car. But at the end of the day, the only twist and the only thing that really is aggravating is I'm gonna have to rework my hood. And as you can see, all that metal work, I'm gonna have to cut all that out and basically reshape that hole. And once again, I'm gonna have to do another hood, or we're gonna have to repaint it. Now, part of me thinks that maybe we just buy a different hood and go with it. But at the end of the day, I've always wanted a blower engine, so I thought might as well just put that one in here. So anyway, I think I'm gonna stop this one here, and I want to, as I always do, if you want to see the progress of this, be sure to kind of watch these or subscribe to the channel. But I do want to throw this out there. I do appreciate all of you folks that have subscribed and the people that have liked my videos. And I try to engage the people that leave comments. So as long as they're constructive comments and I don't get a bunch of negative stuff on there, I try to engage people back. And but anyway, as I always do, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one.